A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Brothers and sisters, those who are in the flesh cannot please God, but you are not in the flesh. On the contrary, you are in the Spirit, if only the Spirit of God dwells in you. Whoever does not have the Spirit of Christ does not belong to him. But if Christ is in you, although the body is dead because of sin, the Spirit is alive because of righteousness. If the Spirit of the one who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, the one who raised Christ from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also, through his Spirit dwelling in you. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Is there one of us who doesn't feel strained right now? It's okay if we do, especially considering the state of things. Now, I'm not talking about COVID-19, nor any other potential strains, though they all have their part to play. I'm talking about something underlying all of it, that we all share. Us fighting together against evil as it wages a war on and even in our souls. Paul talks about this today when he talks about flesh and spirit, and it's easy for our understanding of this passage to get in the way of Paul's meaning, to hide his meaning from us. It's easy to miss what he wants his audience to hear. But Paul's talking for our benefit about this war, a war waged against us by evil in all its forms, bodily sickness and death, yes, and also loneliness, sadness, hatred, despair, fear, countless others. Here's all of verse 8, including a part missing in our reading that we just heard. For the concern of the flesh is hostility toward God. It does not submit to the law of God, nor can it, and those who are in the flesh cannot please God. The way of the flesh is of evil. Evil is hostile to God, it hates him, but it's powerless against him completely. So it looks for some other way to hurt God. It targets us, hates us, humanity, God's beloved daughters and sons. Much as we can experience this virus on the outside now raging in our country as some force bent on our doom, so by this way of the flesh, God's enemy and ours looks to destroy us just as mercilessly. This enemy, evil, the devil, call him what you want, has one weapon: getting us not to love. When a person has a chance to love, this enemy craves that person choose anything else. Evil wants us not to choose to will the good of the other as other. As long as we choose something other than love, and whenever we do, we give in. We cease to fight the only thing that hates God and hates us. And instead, we surrender to, cooperate with God's enemy and ours. When we choose not to love, evil wins. But brothers, this is where we listen to Paul. Paul writes here to us just as he did to the faithful in Rome, to encourage us. He says, you are not in the flesh. On the contrary, you are in the Spirit. You're in the Spirit if only the Spirit of God dwells in you, and if you are in the Spirit, you are in God, and you cannot help but to please God. As stark and dark as that first reality is, so encouraging, enlivening is the second. If you or I ask, beg for real, self-sacrificial love, wholeheartedly to be poured into our hearts, God will do it. It's the gift that he most wants to give to us. If we act in this love to put another person really and truly before ourselves, we can know that we have the Spirit of God, that we're fighting with God against our enemy. And more by living this love that can only come from God, that comes from his very life, we can know that the Spirit of God absolutely dwells in us, that evil, all evil, is absolutely overcome. Now we know living in the Spirit comes at a cost. It has a price. It's the big catch in all of this. It's the hardest part. The cost is suffering. We don't want to suffer any more than Jesus wanted to suffer, to die any more than Jesus wanted to die. Remember how he feared in Gethsemane, begged to be spared. But when his ultimate chance to love came, when his cross came, he embraced the suffering he needed to undertake. He did it for love of us. By embracing his suffering, he suffered to the point of death. And he won for all of us the war that we're fighting today. So as we fight daily in the world and in our hearts against this evil, we're invited to live in and with the suffering Lord of life, who's already won the victory. He begs us to share in it, even now. So in the midst of all our strain, our sadness, fear, despair, take heart. Yeah, take heart. If we live in him, if we live in his love, this victory is already ours.